So today we're going to be continuing to talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, what's happened since my last video, and how Ukraine is doing in holding off against Russia. Once again, we're talking about active war, so this might be a little bit heavy for some of you. Others, maybe not. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe. And let's go ahead and get started. Last time I talked about Ukraine, we were looking at like the first steps of invasion. When I recorded that, it was just the day after Russia started invading. Now it's been almost a week, so I'm recording this on Monday, and some very big developments have been occurring. Both sides have had some interesting scenarios play out for them, so we're going to be talking about those such interesting scenarios, and we're also going to be talking about how Ukraine is holding off Russia successfully. So first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at Kiev. So Kiev is right here towards the northern border of Ukraine. Russian forces are moving down from the Belarusian border, and they are moving down towards Ukraine's capital, which is Kiev. They haven't really entered the city other than the outskirts over here, but like I said, those are outskirts, not as important as the central city. But they are closing in, and they're closing in pretty quickly. Experts say that Kiev would have fallen a few days ago. It's holding out. The Ukrainian military is doing well at holding back the Russians. Moving on over east here, we can see that there was a few spearheads shooting out towards Kiev, so they're most likely going to go down this road here and eventually be down and sort of encircle Kiev in the north. We also see this other spearhead, which will likely do the same thing, maybe going down more and coming in towards the south. But overall, the Russians are moving to sort of encircle Kiev and maybe capture it. The city up here, Chernihiv, I'm sorry if I pronounced that horribly, but that is seeing a few spearheads poke out towards it, and it's also been being bombed a lot. So forces are moving out from Belarus, which is unfair for Ukraine because Belarus isn't at war with Ukraine, but Russia is using Belarus as a giant military base. But that's just how Russia is. But these forces are most likely going to push in and maybe capture the city, maybe not. It's kind of hard to tell because the Ukrainians are fighting back very well at this point. You might look at this map and be like, oh no, they're not fighting back well. They're losing up here in the north. In the east here, we have, Luhansk and Donetsk. And then down south, we have the Russians pushing up from Crimea, which isn't going too well for the Ukrainians, but that is really the only front that they're not doing too well in. Up north, the Ukrainians have been holding off the Russians very well, and they've even won their own battles, which is to be expected because the Ukrainian military isn't a joke or anything. It's a very big military. The equipment is a little bit outdated. It's kind of Soviet equipment, but they're getting lots of equipment from the West. So Ukraine will be able to hold out here. So before I jump into the fact that Ukraine may not surrender, let's talk about how they've been having peace talks with Russia. It's not necessarily peace talks. It's more like trying to get a ceasefire. So they met on the border of Belarus, and I'm not sure what they discussed or if they came to any conclusion yet because that just happened today, a few hours ago. But we do know that they are willing to negotiate. And I'm sure that in this treaty, if so Russia wants to get their way, I'm sure they demand probably the Donbass area and maybe some land off of Crimea, but I don't think they would really want anything else. They'd also definitely want to have the Ukrainian government overthrown. They've said that before. They want to do denazification. Anyway, coming from the peace talks, cheers to you, Ukraine, because you are doing very well. We're talking about a very patriotic military. We're talking about volunteers joining this military just to defend their country. And overall, Ukraine will probably last, just like their anthem says. Also, I forgot to mention that this is a website. It is called liveuamap.com. And it's a little bit buggy for me, so I have to use a VPN to get in there. But it does show the live conflict. We can also look at Syria and Iraq, like other places in conflict. So that's also interesting. And I kind of want to lead into something else there. Like, my last video was very opinionated, and I admitted that. And people were like, well, if Russia doesn't have a right to invade Ukraine, then why did the US have a right to invade Syria and Iraq? First of all, Russia is in Syria, so you can't even bring Syria into the equation. Iraq is a little bit different, though. We went there because George Bush was, I can't really say that claim there. I don't know what the point was. Weapons of mass destruction, even though there definitely wasn't any. Afghanistan, obviously because of 9/11. There's been a lot of significant developments in this war recently, and I want to talk about all of them because Putin is apparently losing his mind over here in Russia because he can't beat Ukraine. So hopping back over to the CNN article here, this is probably the best place to find updates on the Ukrainian war because it just has very regular updates. Of course, you can watch TV on the news, but this goes into detail about all of them. Really good article. You can just search up CNN Ukraine Live, and they'll pop up the article. But this is what I've been using to get all my information, and we can see here, U.S. has asked 12 Russian UN diplomats to leave the country. Deputy Ambassador confirms. This is due to, I think, corruption? Let's find it here. Intelligence operators who have abused their privileges of residency in the USA. So yeah, the UK Communications Regulator launches 15 investigations on Kremlin-backed news channels. So Russia Today, that's a big, I've seen that it's not very good. Of course, if you're Russian, then you're gonna disagree with me there. But RT, very controlled by the state. We can see the International Criminal Court opens an investigation on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So let's talk about how the world is responding. The world is responding a lot more harsher than anyone would have ever anticipated. We have the sanctions, which are one thing. They're doing their toll, but they're not probably as good as a lot of people want them to be. But we do have Russia getting banned from a lot of stuff. For instance, the EU has closed all of its airspace to Russia. The Russian aircraft are not allowed to fly over the EU anymore. FIFA has disqualified or banned Russia from participating in their sports. I think the World Cup, a lot of countries are coming out. So like Scotland, I think even Switzerland came out against Russia in the World Cup. Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Wales, Poland, Czechia, and I think Italy has all said that they're not going to participate in the World Cup, or they're not going to play against Russia in the World Cup. And this is this is pretty big because Russia is having a lot of backlash over this. Of course, we still have the Russian allies like India, who hasn't came out against Russia because India doesn't want to, hurt Russia's feelings. India is a very big Russian ally. It's also a very big U.S. defensive ally. So it wants to play both sides, which is probably the smartest thing to do for India. And then China has been kind of interesting because China hasn't necessarily denounced the invasion of Ukraine, but China has said, like, you need to respect every country's sovereignty, which is kind of ironic because of the whole Taiwan thing, but it is interesting to see China kind of, in a way, speak out against Russia. Missile strike in Kiev region destroys dormitory and residential buildings. We all know civilians are not being necessarily targeted, but they are dying. And this is because Russia's being a little bit sloppy. Here's a big news. Big news. Putin placing Russian nuclear weapons on high alert is interesting. We're at a DEFCON 3 right now. I think Europe is in a DEFCON 2. I might be wrong there. There's no real way to check, but this is interesting because Putin is putting nuclear bombs, destroying the world, on essentially standby. Russia has 4 levels, kind of like how the US has 5 DEFCON levels. Currently, they're on 2, which is 1 away from 1, which I'm pretty sure is war. And this is pretty interesting because obviously Putin isn't enjoying the West's response, and they've already said that, like, if the West sends troops into Ukraine, then he will not rule out nuclear bombs, and he may even use nuclear bombs, which is obviously horribly scary. We see NATO allies providing, whoa, we have a lot of money here. I didn't see this, but NATO allies are providing Ukraine with military equipment. They're providing them with humanitarian assistance, military equipment, like I said. Lots of stuff is being sent into Ukraine right now. $226 million in humanitarian assistance is a lot of money. Also, this is split between military equipment as well. I think the U.S. is sending close to $400 million in military equipment, which is awesome. Here we can see a very large military convoy. So this is tons of infantry troops moving towards Kiev. This is definitely going to play a role in Russia's capture of Kiev if it so chooses to capture it. I mean, obviously it will, but I don't know if they'll do it successfully. 120,000 people have fled Ukraine's western border in the past 24,000, or not 24,000 hours, 24 hours. And there is no greater number here explaining how many have left, but I know it's up in the 100,000s. So people are fleeing in mass. Obviously, you don't want to be in a country that's being bombed by Russia. And moving on down the article here, sanctions against Russia's central bank is obviously a big step, as it says here. The West is definitely targeting Russia's economy in order to get them to back off. But personally, I don't think it's going to work. And in order for Russia to truly back off, you'd have to do a lot more than just the economy. We don't want to go to war with Russia necessarily, although some people definitely want to go to war with Russia. And I could probably see why, but I myself don't think that going to war with Russia is a good thing. Nuclear bombs have already been, added into the equation. Here we have an interesting one here. So Finland's government says it will send weapons to Ukraine. This is a big kind of aspect of a greater idea, which is Finland joining NATO. Now, Sweden and Finland have both kind of moved closer to NATO in these past couple days, but they've both said that they're not going to join NATO because they don't feel threatened by Russia. But that's kind of interesting because Russia has threatened both Sweden and Finland, saying that if they join NATO, then there will be military consequences, which is very interesting because Sweden is a very, well, for the most part, a very neutral country. And then Finland is, the Soviets didn't have a good time with Finland. And I think Putin knows that. But threatening these two countries will just push them closer to NATO. So that's not the smartest move by him. Also, it's not in the this article here, But the U.S. is sending another 7,000 troops to Europe, so that's 7,000, 7,500, 5,000. I mean, so all in all, that's around 19,000 troops. I suck at math. That's a big chunk of troops being sent over to Europe. Specifically, I think the new batch is being sent to Germany. I know some soldiers in Europe have already had their contract in Europe expanded, so they'll be staying longer. Obviously, for a pretty good reason, to defend our allies, just in case something were to happen. And mostly these troops are being sent over to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, which are all countries that border Ukraine and Russia, may I add. There was a very interesting article earlier, and I want to find it just to show you that it's real. So we have the International Olympic Committee recommends Russian and Belarusian elites, I can't speak, Russian and Belarusian athletes be banned from international sporting events, which includes the Olympics. So that's interesting. Russia's already banned from the Olympics, and the team that what is it called? The Russian, I don't know. There's one team that Russia sends. It's kind of like not the official Russian team, although they're all Russian. They were found cheating as well, so that's interesting. Also here, I mentioned this in the pinned comment of my last video, but the Snake Island defenders, which were supposedly killed in confrontation with the Russian warship, are actually not dead, but they are prisoners of war, I think. Here's basically the biggest thing here. Putin faces stiffer than expected resistance in and out of Ukraine. This is what the video title is basically about. Ukraine, the country that won't surrender. I'm pretty sure that's what the title is. That's what I've decided as of now, at least. But 5 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it seems that it haven't gone exactly to plan for Putin. On Sunday, Ukrainian forces successfully repelled a Russian advance on a strategic airfield near Kiev. And yeah, Ukraine is doing well. They are defending. Here we go. This is the number I was looking for. 500,000 refugees have fled Ukraine. That's 500,000 people. That's a lot of people. But I'm still trying to find that one article. I can't find it for some reason. It was about Switzerland. Here's another interesting article here, or I guess piece of news. So Zelensky asked the EU that Ukraine joins. I worded that horribly, but basically he wants Ukraine to join the EU urgently, quickly as possible. I don't know what the EU's response to this was, but I know that there was an article somewhere saying that the EU wants Ukraine in, but I don't know if they're allowed to join because of the current war situation. Here we have some proof that the sanctions are indeed working. So 9.5 interest to 20% interest is a big jump. And here we have or I gotta move this actually, but here we have a different article. This is an insider article. It's not the CNN article I was looking for, but it is still an article talking about it. But Switzerland breaks neutral status to sanction Russia over Ukrainian invasion. Now this is an embarrassing blow to Putin, obviously. The most neutral country in the world, which has been neutral for 200 to 250 years, I don't know which one it was, has broken its neutrality status in order to sanction Russia over Ukraine. That's pretty funny to me. That's really funny, and kind of a big weird event because, you know, like I said, Switzerland's been neutral forever now, and here they are sanctioning Russia. So they adopted the EU sanctions against Russia. So basically, they're just copying and pasting those sanctions onto Russia, obviously with their own format. And then I didn't know about this. So Switzerland said it will close its airspace to Russian aircraft and bar people close to Putin from entering. That's very interesting for me. So I thought it was just the sanctions, but I didn't know it was also that. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump back over to our map of Ukraine here. And just to end off the video real quick, we'll be running a quick rundown of how Ukraine has been, I guess, invaded over these past few days. So the invasion started on the 23rd. Well, it started on the 23rd for me, but it started on the 24th for Ukraine itself. Obviously, right away, there wasn't anything really happening, but all right, never mind. Apparently, the site just died, but that's fine. I do want to take a look at one of my own videos real quick because there is something interesting that I spotted, or I guess I found out, which has to do with the war simulation video. Now, this is a very over-exaggerated video because first of all, Russia wasn't doing a full-scale invasion. They're doing a minor invasion as of now. And it's not really as big as I'm pretty sure they want it to be. But they're focusing on the northern Kiev area. And I very much underestimated Belarus's play in the war. I didn't really consider the fact that Russia would use Belarus as a giant military base. So most of Russia's forces are in the north and in the south. And they don't have much going on over here in the Donbass region. Although I didn't really even factor in Luhansk and Donetsk yet, so that's also a big my bad on my part. But I do want to talk about this video because it is interesting. So this is a scenario where Russia focuses its troops on the eastern half, real life focusing on the south and the north. So I did kind of get this right, although Russia's more like along this line as of now. I do want to talk about how I got this right so far. I don't know why I'm talking about like my prediction. This video isn't necessarily a prediction, it's more of a analysis of how it could break down. I don't know, but I do want to talk about this is pretty much exactly what the front in the south looks like right now. So we have Russian forces pushed up to this river, or I guess it's actually more of a lake, but they're pushed up to this river. There's a little bit of an exclave across the river, which Ukraine is holding on to. And then they just have all the area of the water in the south. I don't know if they have all this over here, but I know they have all of this under their control. So good on me for getting that right. But fast forwarding in this video, obviously that naval landing in Odessa is technically accurate because they did something similar to it, although I'm pretty sure they're just shelling Odessa from the Black Sea. That, I'm pretty sure, will eventually happen if peace talks fail, and then obviously Ukraine falls, unfortunately. So, yeah, and then the peace treaty here is interesting. I don't know if it's 100% accurate as to what can happen. I doubt Belarus would get anything from it. So, yeah, we could see this. I'm pretty sure Russia might just annex all of the southern Ukrainian coast and maybe invade Moldova and make a puppet out of Moldova and then give them this part of Ukraine. That's probably likely. But let's stop talking about this because war is not fun. And yeah, that's just a little bit more of an in-depth analysis of what's been happening. I'm going to be doing more updates, and if anything significant happens, then I'll make a video on that. That isn't Wednesday or Saturday. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to help out the channel, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. That really helps me out and shows me that you guys are interested in these kind of videos. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.